a couple of things, but I'm gonna have Abby start with just talking about the agenda for the meeting, and then we'll talk to you about some of the exciting things happening.
Yeah, so today our plan is that we are just going to give you a brief update on the board. Obviously, Tori has returned since the last time we met. And then just a brief overview. We had our quarterly board meeting last week, which really was focusing on the strategic plan that we're rolling out with the board, which obviously includes our committees as well. So, and that's where this committee fits into that is we're going to have a portion of that strategic plan that includes the youth committee and its charge and what it'll be focused on. So we're gonna review that and then we'll go over the one pager with you all, try to get some feedback, and then that is going to be our launching point for some collaboration in the future. And then we'll just leave it open to any thoughts or updates or anything else that you all have for today.
Great. So just to give everyone an overview, for our strategic plan with the workforce board, and for a little bit of background, and I'm sure some of you know this, that the state workforce board is so large, and it's had a really hard time kind of finding its voice outside of being a compliance body. But the legislative intent set forth by President Obama when he signed WIOA into legislation was to create a neutral convening point where all of the workforce system could come together and where there'd be real oversight on the work that's happening and advocacy to kind of move the system forward. And so what we've outlined through our strategic plan are some top line priorities for the board to focus on as it pertains to oversight and development of policy. And we want the committees to serve as really kind of these creative spaces where work can start to get done on the policy front, based on their specific charge or specific sector that they're involved in. So just as an overview, the top priorities that the board kind of has overarching strategies and benchmarks. We're happy to send you what was approved most recently, which was just the strategies and benchmarks. It was not the operation section of the plan, which we're hoping to approve in May. But just as top line, we're focused on the oversight and improvement of WIOA spending, aligning the workforce system, supporting our existing workforce or folks who are coming here to be in our workforce, education and training, and then relocation, recruitment, and retention. And within each of those, we have some strategies, and then we're outlining tangible benchmarks that that the board has to adhere to by a certain date so that we can continue to make progress. In the strategic plan, each of the committees has their own, we're calling them one pagers. They might be longer than one page, but they're essentially kind of like a mini strategic plan that outlines the tangible work of a committee. I think, as you all know, we don't want to just sit in meetings that don't achieve anything. And we all know there are issues facing the youth. So we want to create something that gives us a direction and something tangible to work on. And I'm fairly excited about the opportunities we have as a committee. So what we're going to do today is run through, Abby and I put together like a template one pager. This is in no means like we could change literally every single thing about this. We just wanted to give us something to work from based off of feedback we've had from prior meetings. So nothing is set in stone. But essentially what we wanted to go through today is just kind of what the format looks like. And the benchmarks we laid out, obviously all of it subject to change, and how we'll end up drafting this document. And so for the process of drafting this document, we'll have today's meeting. We're hoping to brainstorm some potential ideas, potential changes. We'll follow up by sending you the one pager and ask for written feedback, more thoughts. We're happy to set up one-on-one meetings, get your thoughts and feedback. We'll discuss at the next meeting we have together, kind of rinse and repeat, go through that process until we get something that we all feel really good about. But the idea behind this is that there's tangible work that we're actually doing, and that the committee has a clear charge so that, you know, again, we're not wasting your time and expertise. So any questions about that? Great. So that's why it's okay if not everyone's here, because we're going to make sure that we get, and when we get feedback, this is what we've done for other committees, is we basically put who gave the feedback, and we put it in an Excel spreadsheet, and we track like what changes have been made, so you can see from document to document, like, oh, I said this and this is where it went. Because I know sometimes too with documents it can be hard to tell like where the changes were made. So with that, if there are no questions, I'll have Abby share her screen. Great. So how we've laid it out, this is based actually on a framework from the Connecticut strategic plan, is each one pager, which we do this for each of our strategies, has the situation, a general solution, and then the milestones that we would like to achieve to get towards our desired solution. So again, I don't need to read each of these because you guys can track changes when you're doing edits, but the gist of the fact is that our youth is important to our workforce. There are geographical and socioeconomic disparities between children and access to programs. Certain populations are falling behind, and there's more that we could do as a state to coordinate around our students and support them. So it's not just career exploration, but also mental health, and potentially transportation or other barriers that they have that could allow them some upward mobility. And so then with the solution, the committee would be following a parallel track of promoting and increasing access to existing programs, so that more kids know what's available to them and not just the high achieving kids, while also figuring out where there are gaps in the system and where we need to have increased investment and potential barriers. And the ultimate goal is for policy discussions, as the full board by fiscal year 2025 is going to propose policy recommendations for the governor's budgeting process. The youth committee would be a part of that development process for the youth section of our plan. So that's what it would be. I think in terms of the policy piece, that's a long conversation down the road. And one of the ways we are trying to bridge that in the meantime is Abby and I have office hours every Friday, and we can invite you all to that. And we send a bi-weekly legislative update. So if you all have thoughts and things about legislation, you can come to us on that on Fridays. But that just to kind of give you, that's the long term, is that there's innovative ideas coming out of this committee that could be used to workshop with agencies and departments in the summer when they're developing their policy proposals for the governor. So I'll stop there for any questions. No? Okay. So going back up a little bit to talk about some of the benchmarks that we have put forward. I don't think I need to read each of them generally, but essentially we thought the initial work of this group would be inventorying what student support activities are happening statewide. So that could be through school, that could be through programs like the Governor's Institute, that could be through summer camps, after school, and working probably with Vermont After School, creating an inventory of what programs are available to students by age band, so elementary, middle, and high school students, as well as youth that are not in the school system, and what's available. And in that, working to promote those programs, working to somehow create a communication work so that we can get more students involved in those programs. Again, some of the students might be not the high performing kids that are always going to sign up for things, but are kids that might have an interest, and working on an outreach plan. Simultaneously, while we're doing that work, though, also identifying capacity of these organizations, where there are gaps, what age bands may have gaps, what type of programming we might be missing for specific career pathways, those types of things we'd be looking at and promoting or figuring out how to pool resources to create more of that type of programming. And with that, an initiative that's already kind of happening, but figuring out how to work with the chamber, with schools, with counselors, with mental health organizations for some statewide mentorship. This was something a lot of you brought to us, is if there's a way to have businesses, if there's businesses that are interested in mentoring in the community, mentoring in schools, working with kids, doing things with kids, that we could create kind of a nexus for that to happen through the workforce board that we could host and work through. Obviously, there's a lot of logistics that need to be worked out in that. So if there's something that's already existing, it would be either promoting it or helping them with that, or, starting from the ground up and kind of developing that as a committee. And then, moving on, we do have one federal component of our work that we're required to do, which is the monitoring and oversight of the youth WIOA funding. That's essentially in WIOA, the Youth Council was created to do that. So in our plan already, the board has oversight power. Power is not a real, I guess it's not really the best word to use. Oversight mechanisms in the plan for all WIOA funding, but this committee would be diving deep into the youth specific funding and how it can be allocated, how we can help get up utilization, what more work we can do there. And then finally, the last kind of two is this, we talked about this a lot, would be hosting youth-related career, working with organizations or partnering to host youth-related career exploration events statewide, longer-term goal, and then the policy work that I was talking about later on. So again, this is not like, first of all, the dates can all be changed. They're just placeholders, and the wording of everything can be changed. But that was kind of the nature of this one pager, and what we're looking for ultimately from this group is to brainstorm, again, a clear focus, make changes to this, basically rip it apart until it feels like something that we all want to work on together. But we just created this based on kind of our feedback from you all in prior meetings. Abby, any other thing you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I guess just opening it up to the group, if there obviously anything that with our previous meetings, I think we tried to take into account what you all were sharing with us, but just looking at this broad overview, are there any things that you all have a strong reaction to, or feel like there's something that we've missed, or a certain direction that you'd really like the committee to go in? Or I think we're looking for you all to identify any gaps here.
I have a comment. You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm on a funny headphone set. Two things. One is I'm just sort of wondering about the overarching goal of for young people, if it is more in the direction of keeping keeping folks who are in state for career paths. If that's I know there's another relocation effort, if that's really feeling separate, or this is like, how are we inspiring our current youth to see opportunities and build career skills? I think that's what I'm hearing. So that's one just sort of question about like just big aim here. And then the second is, I feel like what is missing, and maybe it will be dealt with in sort of subcategories, is acknowledgement of reaching students of all backgrounds, of all income levels, of all identities, and making sure that I'm just curious about how much the group wants to prioritize giving folks opportunities who might not have these opportunities versus sort of broadly, like everyone should have the same opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good feedback, and I think that's the intent of what we're trying to do. So I think as we're editing this, we could more specifically name that and make it more clear as a focus, because I think that's ultimately our goal. Is like, there's definitely disparities in student achievement based on a number of different barriers and identities, and our goal is the equity focus there, and getting kids up to speed. So yeah, I think that's good feedback. In terms of the overarching goal, I think in terms of keeping people in Vermont, the Career Pathways Committee, that's more, I feel like that is their mission. What I see this is us doing what we can to develop the best adults possible through youth. And I think career exploration with Vermont companies will probably help us get people to stay in Vermont. But I think we're developing our youth in general. I think with this committee, I'm less concerned about the nailing it in that they need to be immediately staying here. But just that we can give them more options and create that equity. You know, if we're really successful in our work and we're like crushing it and everyone's graduating and going, you know, doing post-secondary training and whatnot, maybe then we say, okay, we need to, but I think at this stage, I think just focusing on how we can better support kids, and then at different points or different groups within the workforce board will focus on how do we capture them once they feel developed or have that identity.
Thanks, Tori. That's really helpful to hear that sort of articulated. Just a follow-up question. Is there a low end age of the age range for quote unquote youth in this plan?
I mean, we could probably set one. I think in terms of like our actual work, right? Like we're probably not going to be doing career exploration work with preschoolers. But I didn't include one just because I wanted to keep it fairly broad. If we wanted to do, you know, different types of things for that are obviously not career necessarily, but it's just interest exploration for elementary schoolers and different ages to get them excited about potential career pathways. And then in terms of the mental health stuff, that stuff is just starting earlier and earlier. So if we're, you know, if we're looking at the mental health supports and that type of thing, I don't want to limit us, but I will say I'm not looking to, and it's not necessarily a focus. That's kind of like the focus of all the childcare investments going through the legislature. I want to,
Sure.
we'll stay
But there's
focused.
nothing in WIOA that says like we're looking at 12 and up or something. You know, like I just don't know if there's anything.
There are some definitions.
Yeah. Yeah. But the
14.
benefit of what the governor is directing the board to do and what the NGA is telling us is a best practice is to not limit the board just to WIOA funding and work. So there's a WIOA compliance component of this committee, but we're not only going to focus on the WIOA populations. I think we want to spend that money as well as possible, but that's not our only focus. Rose, I saw a hand.
Yes, I just want to make sure that youth with disabilities, I'm the chair of the Governor's Committee on the Employment of People with Disabilities. And so I'm very aware of many youth with disabilities and the opportunities that they may miss out on. So I just want to make sure that that's included in here.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering, Tori, if when you're saying the solution, looking at doing an inventory and assessment of current state activities, et cetera, for many, many years, I worked in state government, and youth was one of the focuses that I participated in, as well as adult, working with labor, of course. And I just wonder, do you have access to any of that work that has been done before, or are you looking to start fresh with the state activities, schools, et cetera?
I mean, I think we do have access and could
Okay.
use some of that existing work, but I think obviously, as you know, especially with Summer Matters, so much has changed. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
more, so we just want to make sure we're capturing that stuff as well.
Exactly. Yeah,
But-
great.
But Tori,
you.
I think, Rose, I'm wondering if you're referencing, I mean, we did a lot of work in surveying the field and getting, sort of that map together.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Way,
Wow.
100,000 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Not that long ago, but it feels that way. So, and I know that there was also some sort of kind of beta testing of some different apps around like mapping and connecting employers. I know Big Picture also has done some work around mapping out and being able to track students engaged in work-based learning. More broadly, though, Tori, because I am just curious about getting a better understanding about the State Workforce Development Board expanding beyond WIOA, right, and what their authority would be, and thinking about directing different programs and different funding sources, just so that we have that kind of alignment, and also whether you're going to be are you going to be sharing this draft just because it'll be helpful to?
Yes.
Review,
We're going to
okay.
follow up with an email for everyone to give, like, you can literally track changes, everything that you want. So in terms of the workforce board, I think it's really important to lay out, first of all, it's already in our Vermont and the federal statute outlining the intent is coordination of all workforce related services in the state of Vermont. We do not have the authority to enforce. I think that's really important to note that like we are not the entity that says, Vidal, you did not train enough people in Title I this year, you know, shame on you, you owe us a fine of $700. That's not how it would work. It would be recommendations to the governor to like basically issue directives on behalf of the workforce board. As it pertains to other funding, I think the biggest role that we can play is in successful coordination of some of these services. In all areas of workforce, and I'm sure you all know this, there's a lot of redundant work going on. And all of it could be good work, but the problem is in private, public, government, businesses, we're not all working in the same direction, and so we're not using resources efficiently. And so what the governor has asked us to do is essentially help us all move in the same direction and work efficiently. And so it's a lot of coordination, but then also, you know, if we're getting a system that's coordinated, all right, now where do we improve? You know, where are the areas that we need? But it's hard to make investments if you don't understand the full picture of what's actually happening and not have it be just piecemeal investments here and there. So that's the general charge of the board. And along with this, we'll send you the framework that was approved by the board for the overall strategic plan. And again, like I said, in May, we'll be voting on the full strategic plan, and we can give you updates as it is, but that would include the one pager from the youth committee being a part of that plan. So that our real focus with this is Abby and I view ourselves as neutral kind of conveners for the folks who are the experts in the field, or people who are area matter experts because they're an employer. What we want to do is just give each of these committees and give the board actual tangible things to work towards. We're opening it up to you all on how we get there. And we're open to literally any changes as it pertains to this one pager, because we know we don't know everything, especially in the youth space. So what we want to do is give this board that is a part of this system that's tens of millions of dollars into the state of Vermont purpose, meaning, and fulfill its overall goal, which is to coordinate the workforce system. Other thoughts or questions? And again, we'll have many different chances. What I think we'll end up doing is a couple different iterations of, we'll send you this, we'll say if you get us feedback by X date, we'll then resend it after we make some of the changes, get more feedback. And so we'll have a couple iterations before the next meeting. We discuss more at the next meeting, make changes, rinse and repeat. So there'll be a lot of kind of between meeting collaboration here, and you'll all get a chance obviously to look at this and say, you're really missing something, this is worded wrong, etc. Any other thoughts from folks? Okay, well, I'm happy to sit here with you for a half hour and discuss anything you'd like, but I can also happy to give people a half hour back in their day. But I think there's some real opportunities here with the board and with this committee to do some meaningful work. Just one thing of note you might hear going through the legislature, the board is actually was proposed to receive a $200,000 allocation this year for the coordination of New American relocation services and contracting out that work to essentially inventory and build a system so that it's not fragmented statewide. So just as you all, you may hear about that, that's what that is. It's an allocation for us to work on relocating new Americans here and getting more new Americans here, not just refugees or asylum seekers, but making sure that we're supporting them once they're here. So just wanted to flag that for you all. Great. All righty. Well, have a good rest of your day, everyone. It's great to see all your faces.
Thanks, Tori.
Thanks,
Thank
Tori.
you.
Thanks, Abby.
Bye.